This is an HR program on demand, a living seed capsule of work life and workplace coming live from a rooftop in Stockholm, Sweden. It's me, Ann-Marie Andrich, and
me, Katarina Berg.
A vodcast, if you like, on HR, straight across the counter. Sponsored by HR The Real Deal, HR by HR for HR.
Hello, the two of you.
Hey.
Hey. Anna, Alex.
Yes.
Now, last year we had both of you in separate episodes, and for this year we were thinking, why don't we invite both of you at the same time, just to hear that wisdom on particularly the Work From Anywhere program, because that's what we're focusing on today, right?
We can talk about everything.
You can talk about everything, because obviously you work, you're global HR leaders, so your remit is rather vast. But you were leading the Work From Anywhere initiative and also designing the program together with a bunch of people, right? But you were the OGs, if I put it like that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Others were heavily involved as well,
yes.
to highlight the importance of everyone.
Of the team, as always. But you were leading that program and also putting a lot of effort into it.
Yeah.
And we were thinking of, because you launched it, was it 2 years ago? Yeah,
yes.
2 years ago. And a lot has happened in the world, a lot has happened on the so-called hybrid and flexible ways of working. And clearly, when you launched the program 2 years ago, it got a lot of attention. And I also know that you learned quite a lot also during these 2 years. So before we dive into those learnings, why don't we just do a recap of what is it? No, first of all, why did you do it? What is it? And what does it look like? So who would like to start? Anna, maybe?
I can start, yes. So, and I always like to share this story that we actually started to think about Work From Anywhere before the pandemic hit. So I remember this day early in January 2020 when we sat down in New York. Alex was there, I was still based there, and we talked to Katarina about how we can become more distributed as an organization, because we saw in all our engagement surveys that our employees were, yes, they were satisfied with the flexibility we already offered, but how could we offer even more flexibility?
Right.
How can we kind of work across time zones, across the global scope that we have as an organization much more? So that was kind of the task. And in true Spotify fashion, it was like, Alex and Anna, you can figure out our distributed first strategy. That was kind of the brief.
Yeah.
So what we then landed in was that we took a step back and really started from a white paper, basically. I will add, though, that we had a bit of an advantage that we were a global company already. People were leading, our managers were leading global teams across the organization already. We worked via connecting via Hangout meetings, video meetings, so that was an advantage. But then we took a step back and thought of, what does this mean for Spotify? What do we believe here? What's our belief? And our belief is that work is not something that you need to come to the office for. It's something that you do. Okay, started with that belief, but then we didn't actually spend that much time on the strategy itself. We started to think about more tactical, what are we going to offer our employees then in a distributed setting?
Right.
And then we landed in two options, that you can pick a home mix, majority of your time from home, still access to office, or office mix, majority of your time from the office, but still be able to have the flexibility of working from home. And then on top of that, picking location. So me being in Stockholm today, I work, let's say I pick home mix, but I then want to move to Spain, where we have a legal entity. I can. So that's kind of more the tacticalities of the program. Right. And we created this whole playbook around it, Q&A, and all that for our leaders and managers and employees.
Yeah. And it's still around.
Yes,
which
it's 2 years later.
Thing.
Yes, it's a good thing. It's survived.
It's still here. And it drove some important metrics for us at the time. So we wanted to retain folks because many wanted to move home. We wanted to tap into new talent pools. And we wanted to be more efficient, right? Get more stuff done, because everyone would work in the same way, no matter who you were, where you sit, and so on. Yeah.
So excellent, thank you. And on those metrics, as you were saying, global talent pool is global. You hire, basically all around the world. How has that progressed? What have you learned, and how has that helped you grow your business?
I'm the softie, so this one is for you as well. Anna, you know the hard metrics.
Hit me with
Where
it.
do we stand?
Yeah,
People are happy.
I would say
feel that it's
Alex
a
was very
success.
humble when he said it's still around. Actually, the program has been very successful.
Yes.
We have received a lot of attention across the globe, and our employees, I would dare to say, love it, because that flexibility that we are offering, we could never detract from that. We cannot go back from this program that we are offering. And we had a hypothesis going into the launch of the program that we would hire faster and hire from a broader, more diverse talent pool than we already had. And that we would also see even higher engagement scores across the organization. And I would say that we're hitting most of these achieving most of these hypotheses right now. So, for example, we have a much shorter time to fill. I think we've gone from 48 days on average per role to 42.
Great.
We have increased our diversity number where we can measure diversity, mostly in the US, of our overall talent pool. And we're also seeing an increase in diversity from a leadership perspective as well. So these things look very positive when we look into the measurements of what we thought the program would give.
Fantastic. And I was just, when you were saying from a leadership perspective, you also see the diversity. Is that on gender, or is it the full range of the diversity agenda?
It's the full range.
Right.
But again, it's important to note that we can only measure it in the US, where we have, of course, a huge population in the US, but we can't measure it in most of our European countries due to regulatory reasons. But yes, it's across all the metrics, so ethnicity and gender and so forth.
Great. And it was well received by the employees as well.
Very well received, to the point that I think that I could not see a world where we would not offer this flexibility anymore.
I think it's good to point out as well that it allowed us to hire from new markets. So now we have a lot of people in the local markets that then build products for people using the product in those local markets. So like the cultural intuition or feeling that you need to have that you might not always know if you build a global product from Sweden or from US is there to a larger extent today. So I think all in all the product is also improved a lot because of this.
Fantastic. And last year, we could also see that there were some companies who were, clearly every company has been trying to figure out how do we work today in the new ways of working. And there were some companies who were, being very clear on that they want their people back into the office, because they were, saying that, we lose employee engagement, or, it's important for our innovation, our creativity, but basically we want people to meet, right, in the office 5 days a week. And then obviously we had reactions to that as well. What is your take on, bringing employees back to the office 5 days a week? Is that a recipe for success, or how would you put that?
I think it's driven by macro changes. So the climate that we operate in today is tougher. You have to compete under different terms than what you did a few years back when people had more money and companies had more money and everything was growing. Now it's not anymore. And then I think it's easy to end up with the solution. We have to assert control. We have to introduce travel stops. We have to get on top of our spending. We have to do a bunch of different things. And then calling people back to the office is asserting control. And we don't believe in that. But every company operates in different contexts, so it doesn't apply for everyone. But in our case, most teams and most managers already work distributed. They had teams spread across multiple offices, multiple geographies, so it doesn't really change anything. And our approach has been to let's invest out of these rough times and let's invest in trust for our people, because they are the ones who build Spotify. They are the ones who will take us through this new phase in our company growth. So we still believe in this, and nothing has really changed from that perspective. So calling people back into the office won't change or add any value either. Also, I find it interesting because when I speak to most or some of the employers that are asking their people to come back in, when you start to unpack the data a bit, people aren't actually coming back into the office anyways. So what you're saying is that we want you to be in 3 days a week or the full week, but then people aren't showing up the full week or the 3 days. So you're saying and asking for something, you're not really following up, and there's no true consequences, and people are still approaching this as during the pandemic. Maybe they're spending a bit more time in the office, but that in itself creates a dysfunctional dynamic in your workplace, and I think that's just a negative overall.
Right.
So I would think through why and what you think you can achieve by it, basically.
Exactly. Excellent answer. Now, innovation. I mean, we're talking to you. You work at Spotify. Innovation is in your DNA, right? Have you experienced
a dip in innovation?
Yes. Have you experienced a dip in innovation through the pandemic, as we were working, all of us more or less remotely, and now with the Work From Anywhere program?
Yeah. You want me to start?
Yes,
Yes.
start and I can say.
No is the simple answer. And I think it goes back to we operated this way before,
Right.
but we made life more complicated because we had different ways of working in different offices and different locations. Now we've tried to harmonize that a bit. But what we do see though is people feeling a lack of connection to the mission, the overall Spotify mission. So we're doing things to accommodate that or to mitigate for that. So we host events in the office to get people to come in at the same time. We encourage teams to meet the same day in the office if they're going into the office. We try to help the organization understand how you can still drive innovative workshops and engaging workshops even though you're in a remote setting and those type of things. And it has worked for us. We haven't seen a drop in innovation so far.
And onboarding, is that remote or on-site?
No, so there's a few things that we are, as Alex was alluding to, that we are not budging on.
Right.
And a few things that we believe are so important to do in person, to also get that kind of, to really get that glue and understand who we are as an organization, our culture and the community of Spotify. So for example, intro days that we are running, I think it's every quarter now, for every new employee then get to come to Stockholm, to experience Stockholm, our office, get to meet the executive team, and to hear from every single senior leader about our strategy. They workshop our values, hear a lot about our diversity, inclusion, and equity strategy. And that is in person. And that has been, the only pause we did was during the pandemic, where we couldn't simply do that. But otherwise, that is something, regardless of how we are building on our Work From Anywhere program, that will never go away. So that is super important. And then last year, coming back from the pandemic also, we are also has been in hypergrowth, as all of us know, for many years. We actually encouraged leaders to bring their teams together and in person to meet all these new hires.
Right.
But then this year we're going back to more digital kind of meetings again. So we kind of also trying to understand where we are, where the macros is at, and so forth. But there's a few things we're not budging on, specifically not introducing new hires, and we want to do that in person.
Right.
But I think it's interesting because we have, in some cases, become like the poster child for how to do this. And then people assume that we believe in remote work to 100%, but that's not really the case.
No.
It's not either or,
No.
It's and. So we can do both. It's more about being deliberate in what you do when you meet and what you do when you don't meet physically. And having a strategy for that and having a plan for how to do that. It's not that everyone should never meet or that everyone should always meet. You have to find the middle ground somewhere, and that's the recipe for success.
Exactly.
And I feel that I often, at least when I speak with other companies, have to sometime, either I'm asked, how do we get people to come into the office?
Yes.
And then the aim tends to be like, we want them to be in the office as much as possible. And we start to ask questions like, why do you want to do that? What do you want to achieve? And how come? And then when the data shows that people aren't still following those guidelines, like you have to think about it differently. How can you optimize the way the world works today? You can't really change that people have changed their view and mindset on what work actually is. That has changed. That train has already departed. So how do you make sure that the train gets to the end station now?
Right.
And what's that plan? I think
Right.
that's where you have to start the conversations.
True, and I would echo that as well. I think that's so well said. And to that point, how much freedom, flexibility, accountability does the respective teams and the managers also have, to figure out what works for them? For one team, this setup might work, and then for another team, they might choose a different setup. Is that the same for Spotify?
Yeah, we have the global program. It's global.
Right.
The two options: home mix, office mix. Every single person has picked an option. But then, of course, when we said from the get-go that we're not going to micromanage how many days people are coming in. And not at all. That's not what this is about. It's what Alex said. It's like offering that, that the flexibility and it's not either or, it's and, right?
Yes.
And then as the program has evolved, we're 2 years into this. Some managers and leaders have said that, okay, for the ones that are office mix in Stockholm, let's come in on Thursdays. We can have lunch, And like you have been finding your way, and we haven't put any structured guidelines around that type of approach. But then also we have our business unit guidelines that are more clear around that there are certain jobs that, for example, needs to be in a certain location a bit more often, such as if you're selling towards clients and you need to meet them in person. Yes, then you perhaps need to be in person a bit more than remote. So we have, of course, looked at that as well. But otherwise, it's up to each leader to kind of find a way that works, but with our global guidelines as the foundation.
So trust is the guiding principle.
Yes, 100%.
Across.
Yeah.
And we've asked them to follow, it's a global program, as you said, and we've asked them to not make up local rules within that program. So one manager can't say, I don't believe in remote work, everyone has to be in the office. Another manager can't say, I want my entire team to be remote. That's not how it works. We want the flexibility and we want to put ownership on the individuals, not the manager of the team. And the same when someone applies for working from home, as an example, we don't ask them to motivate why they should work from home, but we ask the manager to motivate if they want to reject it. Like, why do you want to reject it and why don't you think it works? And it could be tied to performance reasons. We believe they need to be close or next to the team because they aren't really hitting it, or other reasons, but they need to motivate why they reject it, basically.
Exactly.
So focus on a scalable solution and individual ownership, basically.
Right. Exactly. So again, ownership, accountability, trust. Flexibility.
Yes.
And following, because you're also, 2 years ago you launched it, and as you were saying, both of you, you've been learning as, the market has changed and also as the company is changing. Has there been any surprises during these 2 years that you would like to share?
Should we talk about people indexing towards home mix, maybe?
Yeah,
I think that's a surprise, which wasn't really a surprise in hindsight.
No.
But the way we structured the whole program was that if you work from home, we support you with desk and share and lamp and everything. And that's, of course, an incentive. So people index more towards home mix because we still say that you can come into the office as much as you want to. We just need to understand where you want to work the majority of your time so we can plan and build out office space and ensure that there's space for you. So the data on who shows home mix and office mix isn't as accurate as we would have liked it to be because we've built in incentives in the program. And I think incentives is a topic in itself that we can have a bother about. But how you do things with the best of intent, it has unexpected consequences. Like in this case, it makes our data less accurate, so we can't work with it the same way. So that was an unexpected happening.
Yeah.
It's not problematic, but unexpected. So we'll have to work
But
on how to make the data more accurate.
Yeah, it's a learning.
Yeah. And I always share that it's probably not like a surprise, but I think one part of why the program was so successful was that we were really focused on building out those guidelines in the FAQ, like really focused on. We had this whole playbook, like 40 pages on like every single question that you can imagine an employee will have when we launch. But still, the devil's is always in the details. And I think there were like some things we discovered, such as like there's certain countries where you have to have a bit more rigor around contracts, and it has to come in the local language, and you have to receive them in a certain amount of time. And we hadn't really programmed for all of that. I mean, we learned as we go. So there's things like that as well, that you need to think about the details when you launch a program like this. And I think we did overall, but you still learn. And then we've tried to simplify a lot of things also in how you not try to make it too difficult to apply and all these more tactical things, but that makes the program even better now. Then we've tried to scale back on a few of these rigors around.
Beautiful. And I think that's both the challenge, the beauty, and the fun, right? It's not static.
No.
It's something that evolves. It's something that grows with the people that you have, right? And also with the external market as well. So thank you so much. So for 2023, if we look into that famous crystal ball with regards to the program, what do you see? What are the predictions? Anything that you can share?
I think the beauty is again that it's evolving. We have this working group that we've had for 2 years now that we keep meeting with, we keep discussing. There's a few things. We have this partnership with the Stockholm School of Economics that also conducted a survey with our employee base. So we are starting to look into data on what kind of, and we haven't received it fully yet, but that might guide some decisions we make. But in general, I would say, perhaps not for 2023, but we are looking to constantly evolve and get to a point where you can truly work from anywhere, which means that we wouldn't have any time zone constraints. You could like work towards the US, but you are based in Asia. You know, it's like really getting to that point. So there's a few moving steps.
Hold it down.
We're flying off
There's
the
a few
rooftop
moving
soon.
steps to kind of get there, but nothing that probably is this year.
No.
Would you say? Yeah.
Making it simpler,
Yeah.
to your point. I think an interesting dimension as well, but now we're talking like many years
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
future. But time.
Yeah.
Do you have to work 8 to 5?
Yeah.
Right.
Or how do you measure impact and not hours worked, which was part of the program as well. Impact is what's matter, not the hours you spend in the office. But we're not there yet.
No.
But in the future, that would be an interesting dimension to start to unpack a bit as well.
For sure. So Alex, as a closing comment, is work from anywhere here to stay at Spotify?
Yes.
That was a leading question. I know.
I think it's here to stay in the world, and those who think differently will struggle a few years from now.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yes.
Good. Thank you so much. Thank you both for sharing.
you.
Always
Thank you.
inspiring. Look forward to the follow-up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I look forward to it.
And before we fly off this
With my
rooftop,
big scarf.
shall we close the episode?
Yeah,
And you know how we close it.
I'll follow your lead.
Okay. Okay, let's do it. Anna?
Yes.
Yeah?
I
Stay
forgot the
safe.
middle.
Stay safe, stay strong, stay active.
Eat the
Eat the
medalje.
medalje.
Yes.
Perfect! You
Yes.
did it!
Min bena ligger åt fel
Och
håll
mitt
känner
hår
jag.
igen, kolla nu.
Ja,
Nu kommer det.
ja, men nu kommer det.
Kommer komma i min mun
Ja,
istället.
ja, förlåt mig. Gud,
Vi byter.
för annars kommer mitt hår kanske komma i ditt ansikte.
Ja, det gör ingenting.
Ja, men så här gör vi.
Är det bättre?
Ja.
För då
Nej.
blåser det,
Ja.
det blåser på dig.
Det är mer att det inte liksom kommer på dig.
Ja, men det
Ja.
är lugnt.
Bak.
Nej, kolla nu! Strunt samma. Ja.
Kan du inte ta den här runt huvudet då?
Ja, men det kommer ut som en påskkärring. Det finns en tanke med hur jag ska liksom came across här.
Ja, men
Ja.
alltså det kostar att vara stylish.
Jag vet. Good, så det,
So I should shadow her. That's my job. I'm not gonna move, I'm gonna be super stiff
just stand
the
där.
entire conversation.
Alex, you seem a bit stiff.
Yes.
Mitt hår. Alltså, nej, jag ger upp.
Så det blir en cirkel här liksom.
Ja.
Så det är ju ett bra inslag också. Att det händer någonting. hela
Ja,
tiden.
exakt. Ja, men nu kör vi hörni.
Ja.
Snabbt innan nästa vindpust.
Okej.
Hej!
Vilken blick va? Vem är du?
Nej, jag kollar i skuggan så att den täcker in
Jaha, är det
ansiktet.
den du tittar på?
Alltså.
Okej, nu så. Ja. Okej. Ja.
Håret, nu är det rakt i ansiktet.
Jag fick le hela kinden bara vibrerar av kyla.